Before we get started with Colorado State, just want to remind everybody to please turn off their cell phones or at least mute their cell phones during this session. And then also if you can state your name and your affiliation before asking the question, since we are live online, that would be great. Thank you. We're now joined by Colorado State University and head coach Steve Fairchild, linebacker Mychal Sisson, and offensive lineman Paul Madsen. We'll go ahead and begin with an opening statement from Coach Fairchild.
Well, being here in Las Vegas in July always signifies the start of football season. We're happy to be here. Our program right now is completing this week, the last week of an 8-week cycle this summer where we've been training. This following week, our freshmen report on the 2nd, our varsity players report on the 3rd, and then we open the first of 29 practices next Thursday, leading up to our game against the University of New Mexico. That's a little different for us. Past few years, we've always opened against the University of Colorado, and that's the way it will be in the future on our schedule. It just didn't work out that way this year, so we're going to open with a conference game on the road, which will be very difficult. They certainly have all of our attention this offseason and as we go into the month of August. We're excited about this football team. Has a good feel to it, a lot of it with the leadership that these two guys I brought with me here today and some other guys like them have done since the month of January when we came back and got started preparing for this season. For the first time since I've been the head football coach, we've got a majority of our starters back on both sides of the ball. Our kicker and punter are both back, and again, for the first time since I've been the head football coach, we have a returning starter at quarterback. So we're excited about the things we think we can do. We know it's got to translate out there on the field. I'm confident that our staff has been recruiting well and training these guys well, and I'm looking forward to a very good football season this year.
Questions for the head coach or student athletes? We'll start down here.
Mick McGrain, senior writer for the Mountain West. Mychal, how much of it is a matter of confidence and consistency this season as much as anything for you guys?
Yes, that's a big deal. You know, we have to go in this season very confident. We got to be very consistent. That was one of the things that was lacking in the past. So I feel that this team can bring forth all those to the table, and we will continue to do that in the future.
Mychal, can you talk a little about your, Chad Kripe, the Idaho Statesman, can you talk a little about your ability to force fumbles and sort of make those big plays on defense and what the key has been to that?
Basically, I give all my glory to our defensive line. You know, they helped me, and our coaches put me in a lot of different positions to make plays. So as long as my D-line is playing good, you know, my coaches is putting every one of us in great positions to do that. We're all gonna make plays, and I'm gonna continue to make plays.
Coach Mark Anderson, Las Vegas Review-Journal. With the experience Pete Thomas got last season, did you notice a big difference in spring, maybe? And what are your expectations for him this season?
I did notice a big difference. You know, that's a position, like we all know, from year 1 to year 2 or year 14 to year 15 in the NFL. When at quarterback, the more you play, the better you're going to get. We tossed him in there last year as a true freshman. He'd had spring football, but not a redshirt year, so it was a little bit of on-the-job training for Pete. He's a very talented kid. I think what sets him apart is not just his skill set, but you know, his will and competitiveness and work ethic, those sort of things. He'll take a big step forward. I think each year he's our starter. I think he's got a very, very bright future at CSU.
Keller Lyle with the Fort Collins, Colorado. Mychal, wanted to ask you, you've been around now several years, and just does it feel different this year? Is there a different feeling as you go into this, your last year?
Oh, definitely. There's a different feeling. You know, everything we've done is basically different. You know, everybody's going in this season very confident and very excited to see what we're going to do because we feel like we can prove a lot of people wrong this year.
One thing the Mountain West Conference is doing this year is allowing fans to get involved in Football Media Day, and fans were allowed to submit questions online. And we have one here from Jackson Montgomery of Chandler, Arizona. Paul, he asked to talk about the difference between this year and last year, where you were the only starter to last year's offensive line. 4 guys went on to the NFL. This year, you had a little bit more experience. Talk about the transition from 2010 to 2011.
Well, so much of the offensive line is working as a unit. And with all the returning starters and experience that we have, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to open up holes in the run game and then protect Pete in the passing game. I think you're going to see a big difference from last year to this year.
Paul, can you talk a bit about Pete and sort of what you saw out of him last year and his development as a freshman out there?
You know, initially I was apprehensive. He's an incoming freshman. He just got out of high school, but he showed a lot of poise on the field. I was very impressed about how he took leadership on the field, and he rallied us on the sidelines. He had a really good attitude even when things were difficult. And I think that shows a lot from a guy just coming out of high school. And in the offseason, he's also taken a lot of responsibility, gotten a lot of extra work in. And so I'm very hopeful this year. I think he's really going to impress people. But I just can't wait until the season starts.
Kelly Lyle with the Fort Collins, Colorado. Steve, what did you take from last season that you think is going to make you a better coach this year?
More experienced players into this year, so another chance to recruit. You know, we were a little fragile at the end of last year, obviously, and did not play very well. I mean, make no mistake about it. But each team's different. I'm confident that we have recruited well. I'm confident we've trained these guys well. I think we've got some talented players on our roster now, and you know, I'm like these guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do.
Coach, we have a question submitted online as well from Spencer Strong from Fort Collins, and he asks, Coach Fairchild, at this point prior to fall camp, how do you feel about the progress of the receiving corps and the running backs?
You know, I'll say the receiving corps, I'll start with that. There's an area on both sides of the ball where we need to have a great camp. Number one's at receiver. You know, we've got a number of guys that have played to some extent, but we haven't had a guy step up and be a go-to guy. We're thinking Lou Greenwood, Byron Steele, some of those guys will give us a chance. We've got some incoming freshmen that we think are very talented. We've got a redshirt freshman, Thomas Kaufman, that we're very high on, but we've got to see how that unfolds. I'd like to see us really take a step forward in the month of August at that spot. The other area, to segue off of that question, is at safety. We're a little inexperienced at safety. We think we've got some good young kids, but again, they're going to have to show it on the field. Getting back to, it was receiver running back, you know, I'm confident. You know, my first year when Gartrell took the load at the running back spot, we honestly went into that season thinking Kyle Bell would play half the time. So you're never quite sure how it's going to play out at running back. You know, it just depends on who steps up. But between Raymond Carter, who's going to be a senior and very explosive back, Derek Good had a great spring for us. Chris Wilkie's probably as talented a young back as we've had in the program for quite some time. So, and again, we've got some incoming freshmen that we're pretty high on. So we'll see how that unfolds. But the running back spot, I'm fairly confident we'll produce.
Coach Brian Murphy with the Idaho Statesman. There's been a lot of talk about paying college athletes, or at least increasing the scholarship to the cost of attendance. I wondered at Colorado State if that's something that you guys could do, and if it's something you think would be a good idea for college football.
Well, you know, if you ask these guys, I'm sure they'd say they're for it. You know, I'm smart enough to know that some decisions like that are, you know, going to be made at the level of president, board of governors, athletic directors. You know, we've got enough as a head football coach on our plate to coach team and get them ready within the rules. Right now, we're not paying players, so obviously we're not doing it at CSU. So, you know, we'll do whatever's allowed, but I'm not going to concern myself with that.
Steve, it seemed like one of the interesting stories of the offseason was Crockett Gilmore and his move to the other side of the ball. How's that transition gone, and how can he impact you offensively?
You know, you hate to, you know, sing a guy's praises prior to him doing much. You know, he played a little as a true freshman as a defensive lineman. In fact, you know, he opened up and had a sack his very first ball game. Very, very talented kid that was a tight end in high school in the state of Texas. We had him at camp and offered him and got him to commit early. I don't know. You know, to me, he looks like he's got to maybe even play at the next level, but who knows? He hasn't done anything as we speak. So, but we've got a number of guys at that tight end spot will actually play. As Zach Paga leaves us at the fullback spot, we're kind of developing where we go with that position, and certainly have some guys we think they can line up in the eye and do that sort of thing, which we always want to do. But we'll also get more than one tight end on the field and try to develop that type of scheme as well.
Coach Chad Kripe at the Idaho Statesman, being new to the league, can you talk a little about, or me being new to the league, not you, talk a little about some of the players that have really caught your eye in this league and that Boise State fans are going to notice as they start to see these teams this year?
Well, I don't have rosters in front of me. You know, I will say this: I was an assistant for 8 years under Sonny Lubick at Colorado State when we won a few championships, and then I left for a few years. When I came back to the Mountain West Conference, 2008 was my first year as a head football coach. I was amazed at how good the league was, both in terms of the talent level and the coaching. And I think it's not a well-kept secret anymore. I mean, you're looking at teams like TCU, who arguably was the best team in the country last year. Boise's now in the league, probably as good a program over the last 5 years as anybody. I mean, it's a good football. You know, what Troy's done at Air Force, it's a good football league, and there are a lot of talented players, a lot of exciting players, and at Colorado State, we're excited to be in the league, and we are doing everything humanly possible to get our program back to the top of the league.
Mychal, we have one question for you from Nikki Johnson of Denver. She was wondering, after leading the nation in forced fumbles last year, do you have a specific technique to knock the ball out, or is it just happenstance from your defensive line making it happen?
Nah, it's just technique from coaches. They teach you to put your hat on the ball and then let it all work out from there.
We'll take one more question.
Kelly Lyle with the Fort Collins, Colorado again. For either Paul or Mychal, just kind of what do you guys see that this team has to do to be successful this year? I mean, what are your goals as players for this final year?
You want to take it?
You know, just so much of it is just rolling in with a good attitude into that first game. And if we can win that first game and get some momentum going, that's going to be huge for us. And I think we're going to have a fantastic season. But a lot of it's attitude. I think we have a lot of that already. And I think some of that's going to be built during camp. And then the rest of that's just going to finish when we start winning.
Coach Fairchild will be available in the back of the room starting at 2 o'clock Pacific time. Once again, we ask that one-on-one interviews with Coach Fairchild don't begin until that time.